The day I had planned for 2 years became the day my entire family showed their true colors. I was standing in that bridal suite, dress on, flowers in hand, and not a single person who shared my blood was anywhere to be found. No mother adjusting my veil, no father waiting to walk me down the aisle, no siblings texting to say they were running late, nothing. Just silence, and the slow, horrifying realization that I had been abandoned. On my wedding day. But that is not even the worst part. The worst part came 3 hours later, when my father finally showed up. Not to apologize, not to explain. He showed up with 2 police officers and a story so twisted that I still cannot fully process it happened to me and not to some character in a movie. So let me take you back to the beginning, because if you want to understand how a family destroys their own daughter on the most important day of her life, you need to understand who these people were long before that Saturday in June. I grew up in a house where love was conditional, not openly cruel, not the kind of thing you could point to and say, look, this is the problem. It was quieter than that. It was the kind of household where I always felt like I was one wrong decision away from losing their approval. My mother had opinions about everything. Who I should talk to, what I should study, where I should work. My father backed her up every single time, no matter what. And my 2 older brothers had learned early that going along with whatever she said was the path of least resistance. When I met Daniel, I was 26 years old and finally living in a city 3 hours away from my family. For the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe. Daniel was calm, kind, thoughtful. He never made me feel small. He never made me feel like I had to earn his love. We dated for 2 years, and when he proposed, I said yes, without a single doubt in my mind. My family's reaction was not what I expected. My mother smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. My father shook Daniel's hand but said nothing warm. My brothers were polite but distant. I told myself they were just adjusting. I told myself they would come around once they got to know him better. What I did not know at the time was that they had already decided they would not come around. They had already made up their minds. And they had spent the entire year of my engagement quietly building a case against a man who had done absolutely nothing wrong. The complaints started small. My mother said Daniel seemed arrogant because he had opinions at dinner. My father said he did not like how Daniel looked at him. My brothers started sending me articles about red flags in relationships, which was almost funny because Daniel was one of the gentlest people I had ever met. I responded to each concern with patience. I answered every question. I arranged extra dinners, extra visits, extra opportunities for them to see who Daniel actually was. None of it mattered, because the problem was never Daniel. The problem was that I had chosen someone without their permission, and they could not forgive me for that. 4 months before the wedding, my mother sat me down and told me I needed to call the whole thing off. She did not give me a specific reason. She said she had a feeling. She said she knew things about people, and Daniel was not right for me. I told her respectfully but clearly that I was not calling off my engagement based on a feeling. She did not speak to me for 3 weeks after that. I should have known then what was coming. I should have read that silence as the warning it was. But I was so focused on the wedding, so caught up in flowers and seating charts and dress alterations, that I let myself believe we would get through it. Families fight, families disagree, but they show up. That is what I believed. 2 weeks before the wedding, my father called me. He said the family had decided they would attend, but they wanted me to know they were not happy about it. I thanked him. I genuinely thanked him, because at that point, I was just relieved they were coming. I told Daniel that night, and we both exhaled like we had been holding our breath for months. The morning of the wedding, I woke up early. I got to the venue at 8 in the morning. My bridesmaids were there. My best friend Kara, 2 friends from college, a co-worker who had become one of my closest people. They helped me get ready. They laughed with me. They told me I looked beautiful. I kept checking my phone for messages from my mother. Nothing. By 10 o'clock, I sent her a text. Just checking in, letting you know where to go. No response. I told myself she was probably already on the road and did not want to use her phone while driving. By 11:30, my father had not responded to Daniel's text about the boutonniere pickup. I told myself they were just bad at communication. Surely they were almost there. The ceremony was supposed to start at 1 o'clock. At 12:15, none of my family members had arrived. Kara sat next to me in the bridal suite and held my hand and did not say what we were both starting to think. At 12:45, I called my mother. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I called my father. Same thing. I called my older brother Marcus. He picked up on the second ring. He did not say hello. He said, "We are not coming. We talked about this. This was always a mistake." And then he hung up. I sat there in my wedding dress in complete silence. Kara put her arms around me. I did not cry immediately. I think I was too shocked to cry. My entire family, my mother, my father, both brothers, their wives, their children, had decided not to come to my wedding. They had let me believe they were coming. They had let me go through the entire morning believing everything was fine. And then, with 45 minutes left before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, my brother had delivered that message like it was nothing. Daniel came to the suite door. Someone must have told him. He did not try to fix it. He did not try to say something that would make it okay because nothing could make it okay. He just held me for a long time and then he looked at me and said, "Do you still want to do this?" And I said yes. Because I did. Because whatever my family had decided about my marriage, I still knew exactly who I was marrying and why. We got married that afternoon. The ceremony was smaller than planned because there were empty seats on my side that should have held 30 people. But every person who was there genuinely loved us. The vows were real. The moment was real. I told myself I would deal with the grief of what my family had done later. I let myself have the day. The reception was at the same venue, a separate hall attached to the ceremony space. We were 2 hours in, people were dancing, the food was good. I had stopped checking my phone. I had actually started to feel something close to joy, which felt like a miracle given everything. And then the venue coordinator came to find me. Her face was careful, the way someone looks when they are delivering news they do not want to deliver. She told me there were 2 police officers at the entrance and that a man claiming to be my father had asked them to come. I want you to understand what that moment felt like. I had just gotten married. I was at my own reception. And I was being told that my father had involved law enforcement on my wedding day. I walked out to the entrance with Daniel beside me. My father was standing there in a shirt and slacks, not dressed for a wedding he had never intended to attend. 2 officers stood nearby, looking professionally neutral, but clearly uncertain about why they were there. My father looked at me and said that he had reason to believe Daniel had coerced me into this marriage. He used that word, coerced. He told the officers that I had been manipulated and that he was concerned for my safety. He said he wanted them to verify that I was okay and that I had entered this marriage willingly. One of the officers looked at me and asked, gently, if I was all right and if I was there of my own free will. I told them yes. I told them I was a 28-year-old adult who had just married the man I loved at a wedding my family had chosen not to attend. I told them I was not in any danger. I told them I was, in fact, standing in the middle of my own reception that had been going on for 2 hours. The officers spoke briefly with my father. I do not know exactly what was said. What I do know is that within about 10 minutes, they left. Before he followed them, my father turned to me and said that he hoped I understood someday that everything he had done was because he loved me. I looked at him and I said, "What you did today was not love. I do not know what it was, but it was not love." And I turned around and walked back to my reception. I will not pretend that the rest of that night was easy. It was not. I cried in a bathroom stall for about 10 minutes before Kara came and found me and made me wash my face and come back out. I danced with Daniel. I cut the cake. I gave a speech. I did all of it. But here is what I need you to understand about everything that happened after. My father filing that police report, because he did file a formal report I found out later, actually created a paper trail that became important when I eventually consulted a lawyer about the harassment that followed over the next several months. That paper trail helped me. The thing he thought would control me ended up protecting me. It has been almost 2 years since that wedding. Daniel and I are still together, still building a life that feels more like home than anything I ever grew up in. I have not spoken to my parents or my brothers since the wedding. Not because I am punishing them, because I finally understand that some doors, once they show you what is behind them, are better left closed. I used to think that family was unconditional. I used to think blood was some kind of guarantee. What I know now is that family is not biology. Family is the people who show up. And on the day it mattered most, I found out exactly who those people were. They were the friends in that room. They were Daniel, holding my hand through every awful moment of that day. They were the people who stayed. So if you are watching this and you are carrying the weight of a family that has hurt you, I want you to hear this clearly. Their rejection of you is not evidence of your worth, it is evidence of their limitations. You are allowed to grieve what they could not give you and still build something beautiful with the people who actually choose to be there. What happened at my wedding broke something in me, but it also showed me, clearly and without question, exactly what kind of life I was building and exactly who I was building it with. And I would not trade that clarity for anything. If this story connected with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have your own story of family betrayal, drop it in the comments. You are not alone in this. None of us are.